I guess we've always had an interest in boats. Steve went off and he did tool making, engineering, and I did pattern making, which is a form of woodwork used in foundry work. Both trades had a net result of heading towards the boat building. Dad had many boats. Started off, when we were kids with big sailing yachts down at Williamstown, and Dad then took over the cruises and made boats like the Voyager and things like that, which were very, very popular during the 70s and the 80s. My boating career started more in skiing and light fishing, recreational fishing. I had a boat in those days called a Puma, and we sort of ventured over to the cruises and staying overnight. I suppose the kids come along and the cruises were fantastic for that. So today we'd probably use our boat twice a month, something like that. We've got a 28 and we just enjoy our boating. Dad was already building boats, so I guess, from nippers, Steve and I were doing boat shows with him, hanging on the end of a bit of a timber while he nailed the other end and clamping and things like that. It's in our blood. Dad originally was a pattern maker as well, but in those days pattern making was a pretty tough trade to make any money, and his heart was in the boat buildings. What keeps us as a family going is the enjoyment of seeing our name on the side of the boat and listening to how they're enjoying their boats. Dad always said that he loved to hear people the way that they were enjoying their boats, the enjoyment they actually got back from what he'd built. Basically, that's where it's got to start, on a drawing board. These days they're not drawing boards, they're all done on the screen of a computer. Then once we've established that, we've made a mould. The mould has to have a perfect finish to it, because the better quality of the finish, the better quality of the product coming out of the mould. Release agents, special release agents are applied to that so that the product is released from the mould easily. The quality of the boat is as good as the gel coat. It'll move it from our gel coat booths across to our fiberglass laminating booths. We have a process where we like to skin everything, because air bubbles and cracks and those sort of things in gel coat are boat builders' worst nightmare, and the best way to overcome them is to put a tie layer down on it. The tie layer is probably consists of something around about 2 or 3 mil thick that is put down first, where a lot of care is taken to remove all the air and make sure the laminate is a structurally good laminate. That steads the boat for its longevity. So with it, if you've got a good tie layer down, you don't get things like osmosis. Then we back that up after we've checked it for air and those sort of things with a strong layer of fiberglass over the top, which in the hulls consists of double woven rovens with core material mixed in there as well to make them a bit stiffer. Traditionally, we've always had timber stringers, although more recently we've ventured over to glass stringers. Because of the weight factor, some of our bigger boats have got a 44 of fuel and a 44 of water and a lot of weight. So they put the main layer up, they put the stringer system in, the engine beds are laid in next, and then that hull is then released. The deck is a little bit in reverse. It uses a lot of soft core materials in, niter cores and things like that, so we keep the weight down and we keep the rigidity in the big decks so that people can lie, sunbake and that sort of thing up on the big decks without them bowing. Because with our bigger boats, we're very, very conscious of the weight because of the towing regulations. We try to keep them within certain size boats within certain towing ranges, so that's an important part of it. When Steve and myself design a boat, we've got to be thinking ahead a lot. We've got to be thinking about how all these parts are going to integrate together, how they're going to look when they're finished, how well our guys are going to be able to put them into production. There's an awful lot of thought, an awful lot of behind the scenes discussions that Steve and I have before we even start a boat. Once the deck is released, it goes to our grinding booth. Then they'll grind a lot of the fiberglass hairs off it, I suppose you'd call them, for want of a better word, and they'll flow coat the front anchor locker areas that need to be flow coated, the engine bay areas, and then it'll go to our sub-assembly where they'll actually join it. Once they've joined, they'll put the hard top up on top, basically then push it down to the assembly guys to start assembling the boat, putting the engine, the furniture, the plumbing, the electrical. That really is quite a process. I mean, I look at building a house and think we're doing that and more in a boat. They've got radars in them, fridge freezers, everything that a house has got in them these days, and more. Some of our bigger boats are up around 300-400 hours. Some of our bigger boats we've had up to building them 6 and 7 a month. Currently we're probably building about 2 a month. It's quite a fair few hours. Whilst we've automated to a certain extent, boat building still is very much a hands-on job. We rely heavily on the tradespeople that we employ and their skills. And their skills are very, very much varied. We've got guys that are motor mechanics, auto electricians, fiberglassers, cabinet makers, boat builders. Boat building covers a lot of different trades. We tend to like to do as much in-house. We are able to keep our quality a little bit better that way. When Steve was heading the R&D team, it was fantastic to talk to the different tradesmen in the different sections on what they can do. Just little things like these days in modern motor cars, they're using a lot of the stitched dashboards. We can talk to our upholstery people, can we do this, can't we do it, how far can we push it? So we've always worked on the theory of trying to keep as much in-house as possible. I would say probably 12 months on average, from the point of view where we've got all the information, or the point of view where there's a boat sitting at the front door ready to go out. Once again, it depends on the size of the boat. To give you an idea of our production at the moment, we're producing a spy boat every week, which Steve's son basically looks after for us. We're building at least 1 or 2 small boats a week, which would be sort of 5.2 to 5.8 range, and then we're doing probably 2 28s. There's a few small boats generally thrown in there as well, as 1600 and 1800 and that sort of thing. So we're probably averaging 4 or 5 boats a week, I suppose. And we've been as many as 50 boats a month. We believe that we get about 6 or 7 years out of a model. So therefore we're trying to, over that period of time, build 1 a year so that our turnaround of say 7 or 8 models was replenished. It's a very expensive process. You take like a 2800 there's probably $1.5 million worth of tooling cost, maybe even more, which is one of the reasons that we did start America, I suppose, to share those tooling costs, and we also shared the tooling costs with a New Zealand boat company called Rayglass, because we're not America with 250 million people, and we're not Europe with similar sorts of volume of people to buy our product. It's Australia, and we're 20 million people, but we still got the same tooling costs as what the American boat builders do and the European boat builders do. So hence sharing the tooling costs made a lot of sense to us sort of 10, 15 years ago when we started doing that sort of thing.